Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone's doing well today on a Thursday. Week's almost over already. That's crazy. Um, we have originally planned this for Friday, but with all the mess going on around me, I put it on the wrong day. And so now it's going to be today. So um, that's okay. That's completely fine. I can make this work. The topic today is what can the dead do? Welcome to everybody who's here. Give the room a little bit more time to populate here before. I'm trying to get my Facebook feed to reset so I can put this to live. Facebook has been doing some really weird stuff lately, and I can't figure them out. Like, it's not even bringing up my feed right now to go live. That's crazy. Yeah, can't even bring up my Facebook feed. So for those of you who are on Fair Media, awesome. For those of you who are going to eventually watch this on my page, I'm sorry you can't see me. It's not let me go to a public view, which is unfortunate. In any case, today we'll be talking about what can the dead do. What can the dead do? We are supposed to be called to a new life, right? We have the cross that was given for us. We have died to ourselves. All kinds of passages about being a dead to self person, a dead to the old life person, and all that stuff. The question then remains, for me at least, if I'm dead, what can I do? I think a lot of Christians stop at the Jesus died for me part, and they run with that their whole life, and they keep an external connection to the cross, but they don't ever have a true connection to the cross. Now, I've mentioned this before. Many people stop at the foot, and that's it. They just stay there at the foot of the cross, and they keep the reminder of what Christ did. That's where they stay. They don't want to go any further by actually leaving their life there to be nailed to the cross. We love having the concept of keeping our stuff. And I think therein lies our biggest problem. So here, we'll start with this. Then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself and take up their cross and daily follow me. So now we hear about this all the time in church. Okay, pick up your cross daily. And a lot of us have equated our cross to our daily burdens, our troubles, our heartaches, and all this stuff, and that's our cross. And we carry them all, and it's beating us down, just like the cross did weigh him down before he put it into the ground, and he climbed up on it and got nailed to the cross. But when you conflate those two things, you mess up a lot of what he wanted. I'll explain that. Dealing with daily life is a natural part of existence. You have no choice but to go through this life. And that in and of itself is a cross to carry. But let us not equate that cross of daily hardships to the real cross that we should have left our dead man on. Don't conflate the two. There was a point where he carried the cross, and then there was a point where he nailed all sin to it. Carrying the cross of a daily walking is just like you're carrying your burdens on a daily basis. You have bills to pay, you have kids to raise, you have a job to carry about, you stressors. And just like Jesus carried his cross, you have to carry that. But at the end of it, you have to remember one thing. That cross is not the same as the cross of sin. It is not the same thing. You don't carry your sins around like that. That's not the cross he's asking you to carry daily. A lot of us want to carry our sin around every day and think, oh, I fall, because it's so heavy. Because we don't really truly want to die to self. We kind of like having this idea of having a burden. It's now a badge. Like, I have so much to deal with, but God. It is not the same. It is not the same thing. He can't ask you to bring the old man and nail him to the cross and still in another passage ask you to carry it again. He doesn't work like that. That's confusion. You put to death the old man, he can no longer carry anything. You get the difference. There is a daily cross of everyday expectations. We're not talking about the cross of the sinful man. We're not talking about the cross where we have our sins carrying on. That is not the cross he's asking you to carry. That is already up, planted, everything's nailed and gone. That is dead. That's dead. It is a very difficult concept, seeing that you are no longer held to this concept of keeping your sin in front of you all the time. Because what you end up doing is crucifying Christ in you. You don't want to do that. So I have been crucified with Christ, and it is not I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. A lot of us say this all the time. But I have been crucified with Christ. Christ came down. It is no longer I who live, but Christ that lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. We were separated, okay? We were separated. He had to be the bridge, the gateway, the gap cover. None of us, because of us being in a fallen state, could have fulfilled that role. Okay, good. If you then take that sacrifice that he gave, and every day you take your old man off the cross to walk around the world with it and then put it back up at the end of the day and take it back, you are not dead, obviously. What you do carry is your everyday struggles, knowing full well that that might be the cross, but the only reason you are able to do it is because it is not you doing it. Because your life has been nailed to the cross and is dead, and the life you now live is Christ's life. And he was able to carry the cross. We easily conflate our sin cross with our daily cross. We are asked to carry it, follow him. Yep. Nail it. Yep. Die to self. Yep. So my daily handling of things is not me. Once that is done, it's him handling it. I don't know how many times people have told me that this life is hard and it must mean that I am doing something wrong. Or this life is hard and it must be that I'm doing something right. Or this life is hard and it must be because God is testing me. And this life is all kinds of reasons why life is hard. Life is hard because we're here. We're here. But understanding what the dynamic is changes everything for you. So, okay, let's approach it like this. Numerous verses in the Bible talk about our life being hidden in Christ. Okay. Okay, you know what, TW? Listen. I have seen you come in and out of the chat. Okay, and sometimes you're on, and sometimes you're just okay. So I need you to focus for a minute. Okay, just focus for a second. He says, "I willingly put down my life." So if you can't quote Christ right, maybe you shouldn't be talking about him. He willingly put himself there. That's completely voluntary. 100% voluntary. He gave himself up. He allowed himself to be nailed to the cross. He did. He had every bit of power to not make it happen. He willingly, which is voluntarily, gave up himself. So again, if you cannot, and I'm dead serious about this one, I've seen you say a lot of stuff, but this one is ridiculous. Okay? If you cannot get what he actually did, don't talk about him. Dead serious. He had to give himself up. No one takes this for, he literally said, no one takes this from me. I gave up my life. I'm willingly giving it up. No, excuse you, real, excuse you. Do not belittle his sacrifice. You will not be able to belittle sacrifice here. In any way, shape, or form will you be allowed to come in here and disrespect him like that? Again, I'm gonna boot you from the room. I promise you I will. Blasphemy ain't allowed in here. And if you believe the Bible was written by man, then don't come in here, because I'm talking about a man-written Bible then. And I'll keep talking about this so-called man-written Bible. You want to pick and choose which part of the Bible you want to follow, and which part of the Bible was written by man, and which part wasn't written by man. You can't even figure out which part was. Understand this. Every time, and look, every time, people, and you saw some too strong too. every time you touch on something deep, the devil always pops his head in. Every time you talk about something deep, the devil got to pop his head in. He cannot stand God's people moving deeper. He can't stand meat. He wants everybody to dwell on milk. A milk drinker will always be easy pickings. Easy pickings will always be the one that always stays on milk. He'll keep you focused on all kinds of trash. Man wrote that part. Man, everybody knows a man wrote the Bible. You know why? Because he used them. Duh. No joke that man wrote the Bible. Tell me something I don't know. Ain't nobody ever disputed that a human being wrote the Bible. But every time God wants people to go deep, some Satan shows up to pop their head in and talk nonsense. If you really believe that Christ did not willingly give his life up, then you have no concept who Christ is. And I'm going to tell you that right now, you have zero concept of who Christ is. Your point is not spiritual, your point is satanic. Your point is satanic. Satan is your daddy. I said it out loud. I've been wanting to say that to you for a while now. And I'm glad you finally brought your colors forward. I'm not going to be mature with you. Not when you talk like that. There is a maturity in you. There is no maturity in you. You can take your black Jesus and get out of here. That's what you can do. I've seen the comments. I've been keeping track of them. I've been keeping track of it. Trust, I've been keeping track of it. But you are not going to sully his intentional sacrifice for our sin by belittling it, by saying it was not voluntary, he was murdered. You are so not going to do that in here. You can go hang out with somebody else who shares that stupid belief of yours, and it is a stupid belief. When I say the word stupid, I mean absolutely dumb to believe that Jesus was just murdered, that he had no concept it was coming. No concept it was coming. Every time Satan shows up. Goodbye. I blocked her. I have no desire to have that in the room. I really don't. Here's a look. This is true. This is where the truth comes out, okay? And in fact, you know what? I'm gonna do one better. I'm gonna do one better. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I want to make sure I read this for you, okay? The reason the Father loves me is that I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay down my life of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. And you want me to listen to your just ridiculous statement about how he was murdered and he didn't know it was coming and life was taken from him. So Jesus is just a weakling then, huh? God just allowed him to be killed because, and he knew it was coming, he just didn't tell Jesus nothing about it, right? It just happened. He showed up on it. Oh, what? Don't hurt me. Hands up, don't shoot. Is that what you think? Huh? A lot of y'all aren't used to people fighting back with your nonsensical, rhetorical, dumb stuff that you say. A lot of you are used to it. You're used to a preacher. I'm not one, but you're used to a preacher saying everything that your ears want to hear. You're used to people spouting a whole bunch of nonsense that you like hearing because it fits your narrative of how you want to live. You're used to that. You've become complacent. You guys aren't used to a John the Baptist type person just slapping you upside the head with factual stuff. You're not used to it. When he says, "No one takes it from me, I lay it down of my own accord, and I have authority to lay it down and to pick it up," that is completely voluntary. Completely voluntary. All this ridiculous social aspects that you want to place on God that has no bearing at all on him. None. We want to, this is, it bends to reason that you want to bring everything socially acceptable to the world and transplant it and place it on the kingdom of God. And because you want to keep your nonsensical view of life and your sin in front of you, and you want to live the way you want to live and have what you want to have and still try and claim some sort of godly life. That's what you want. You want an excuse to live the way you live. You just want it. You don't want to die. You are refusing to die to self. You know why? You love yourself too much. You believe you are better than God. Who needs the sacrifice of Jesus? We don't need that. After all, they killed him. He wasn't supposed to die. The same way I'm not supposed to die. I'm supposed to live my life for God. Anyhow, and whatever I do, I'm doing it for God. You've heard people say this stuff before. You've heard people say, whatever I do, I'm going to do for God. How about whatever you do at the honest of God? If he pushes you to do it, do it. Not whatever you want to do. It's whatever he'll have you do, you do. We've got this all the way backwards. This is what I mean by dead men can't do anything. I cannot operate on my own accord because it's not my life I'm living, it's his life. His life lives in me. And if his life is living in me, then his life will choose what's done and what's not done. I don't get to do that. I'm dead. I am dead. Do you get this? I am no longer alive. I have given that up. It is no longer mine. Bam, it's gone. And if that is true, how in the world can I do what I want? If you ever find yourself doing whatever you want, you probably are yet to make it to Golgotha. You probably haven't put that old man up on that cross to get nailed there and leave it there. You probably haven't done that yet. It's I shouldn't be baffled and I shouldn't be amazed. But I constantly am. I constantly am. And we do it in every type of facet we can. We try and, not we, the world will try and drag all the worldly stuff to detract from the sacrifice of Jesus. You know how they'll do it? They'll do it as, look at, don't judge. They'll say that. They'll harp on, but what color was he? They'll harp on that. They'll harp on what region he's from. They'll harp on that. They harp on every little thing that will completely detract from the fact that you're dead. If you've entered into that covenant, you are dead. It doesn't matter after that point. Anything else matters after that point. Look, if Jesus shows up tomorrow, Earth comes to an end, do you really believe I'm going to be like, oh, he's black, oh, he's white? You think I'm going to be really concerned? You really think I'm going to be concerned about that? Do you really think I'm going to have any thought about whether he's tall, short, white, or black? Or will the first thing that hits me is like, I haven't lived. Oh my, it's over. Time's up. All the excuses that you could think of is now going to pop into your head. All of a sudden, reality sets in. All of a sudden now, all the crap that you thought was important in Christianity and in godly living goes out the window because all of a sudden now you don't got the power. You don't have control over anything at that point. So why are you concerned about this now? Why? Why am I concerning myself and putting myself in the position of all the worldly things to influence the true reality that he died for all, and anyone who comes to him and dies and lives is his. And the life that you live is not yours. It's not yours. He directs all of your steps, all of them. You want to know why he says his yoke is easy and his burden is light? You ever wonder why he said, come unto me, all who labor, and I will give you rest? You want to know why he said that? Let me help you out. Here's the best example I could come up with. You know, a 2-year-old, maybe a 1-year-old, okay? And they're learning to walk. You ever have that if you're a parent or even an uncle or aunt, and you're holding their hand and their feet are on your feet and you're walking, but they think they're just moving along like nobody's business. They're booking it. They're taking some big old steps, but it's your feet walking. That's you. That is you. He's taking those steps. You're along for the ride. That's why the burden is easy. That's why the burden is light and his yoke is easy. That's why. Because you're not doing anything of your own power. You're not. The instant that child decides, I'm going to do it myself, and pulls his hand off and steps off of your foot, what happens? Face plants. And then cries because you let him go. Right? Then begins to cry to you to pick him up after he decided to pull away and fall flat on his face. People, if you don't start dwelling in what is real, you're always going to end up in the same cycle over and over and over and over and over again. Why? Why? Because you're in a coffin. You're in a coffin. And you can't claw your way out. Whether you believe it or not, if you haven't accepted God, you are dead. Either way, you're dead. Because the wages of sin is death. It is death. He has given you a new life to live. Second chance, if you want to call it that. But it's not really a second chance. It's the first chance of actual living. You sully the sacrifice when you try and live things in your own power. Okay? People like TVW who want to suggest that somehow when Jesus died, He had zero option in it. He had never seen it coming. It was just a murder. You want to think that for your own social platform, not for reality at all. I'm crucified, which means I'm dead. And if I'm dead, I can't do anything. And if I am able to do something, it must mean that I am not dead. I did not give it up. If I constantly find myself fighting the same old battles, hear me out. If I constantly find myself fighting the same old battles over and over and over and over and over, chances are I probably am not dead yet. Chances are. Look, it's sometimes a tough pill to swallow because a lot of people want to think that Christianity is a daily struggle to live righteously. That's what Christianity has become, a daily struggle to live righteously. A struggle. Do dead men struggle? Do they? Do dead men contend with anything? I saw your question, Christy. How can do you open yourself up to Him? My husband has a relationship with Him, yet I can't figure out how to keep myself going to Him. Okay. That's information, but it's not enough to really give you a proper answer. But I'll give you what answer I could give you. Why can't you keep going to Him? Okay, this is a question for you. Why can you not keep going to Him? Just hear me out. I want you to answer me. What do you think keeps you from going to Him? He said, I can't figure out how to keep myself going to Him. Then the second question is, what makes you think you have to keep going to Him? What exactly do you mean by going to Him? Okay? Because I think a lot of us have this concept that Christ is some far, far off thing. Again, this is part of the not dying thing. Okay? We don't understand the concept of how near He is. Lack of trust, I've never been able to fully trust. And here you go. Here's a way you have a heart to heart with yourself and God, okay? And make sure you're somewhere where you're not distracted by people. That's pivotal. And I want you to do this. Admit to yourself that you don't believe that God is God. Just admit to yourself that you don't think God is God. It's that simple. There are only two options when it comes to God. Okay? There's only two options when it comes to you. Either believe Him or you don't. There's no fence riding. You might think you're on the fence, but you're not on the fence. You're just on the other side of not believing. Just understand that there is no middle ground to be had in your walk. There isn't. If He is, listen carefully, if He is perfect, all-knowing, loving, if He is any of those three, right off the top, there is no reason to not trust Him. However, if you don't believe any of those three, it'll be really easy to not trust him. Name one person on earth that possesses all three, but yet still you trust more humans than you do God. Think about that for a minute, okay? You put more faith in people on earth who are not perfect than you do in a perfect God, which tells me you don't believe that God is perfect. Which is why you can't fully trust him. And understand that that is completely fine to be. That is complete, and I'll tell you why it's completely fine. Because you got to start somewhere. I've said this before. A true faith in God only comes after true doubt. It only comes after true doubt. I would venture to say that Thomas came out of that experience way more solidified in his faith, not because he could put his hand in the wound, but because of his lack of belief being exposed. I'll say it again. I believe that Thomas came out of that event with the "let me put my hand in your side, unless I can't believe." He came out of that way farther ahead than most, not because of him touching the scars, but because of the realization that he couldn't trust and he didn't trust God, only to figure out that he should have. Here's what the basics are. If God is who he says he is, believe him or don't. And if you don't, admit that you don't believe the things he said about himself. If you do believe the things that he said about himself, why can't you trust him? How can you not trust a perfect person? How can you not trust a perfect God? How can you not trust an all-loving God? If that's who he says he is, and you believe it, going to him should not be a problem. But there is a portion of you that thinks that's not true. Whatever the situation is, whatever the problem was that caused you to get to that point, there is a point at which you don't trust that he is who he says he is. And it's not even about, thank you, but it's not even about being brutally honest. When you get the realization that you are, that when you see your size, when you see your size in comparison to God, when you see who you are in comparison to him, it blows your mind. And I keep going back to Adam and in the garden. Now, mind you, after the fall, fresh after the fall, fresh, and not just any fall, the fall of all falls, the absolute collapse of humanity happened in the garden. Okay? The absolute worst catastrophe ever happened in the garden. There has been nothing since in the world that could even compare to the disaster that took place in the garden. Nothing can match that. Zero on earth from here till the end will ever match the disaster of the garden. And even in that disaster, he came and talked gently to them. They could still hear him walking, vocals. They felt his presence even after that catastrophic fall. No one ate from the tree of life. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The same God that was in the garden after the fall, the same God that will walk into your mess, into your catastrophe, into your life that you think is unreconcilable. And because you're no longer under the punishment of Adam, you have a way out. He put it there because he wanted to. Okay, I think some of us want to question God a little too much about what his decisions are. The tree of life was in the same location, geographic wise, as the tree of knowledge of good and evil because he wanted to put it there. Notice he didn't wait until they went over to the tree of life. He came down after they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He stepped in at just the right time. If you have a location right now where you are, that you're either a lack of trust in God, you don't know who he is, you don't believe he exists. By the way, not believing he exists and not trusting him are pretty much synonymous, okay? I just want you to know that they're pretty much the same. Yes, they are two separate trees. Because if he had left them to eat of the tree of life, they would live forever in that fallen state. There would have been no redemption for mankind at that point. None. Why do you think he put such a dangerous creature in front of the tree to guard it? Mankind was perfect at one point, right? That's why he called Jesus the second Adam. Adam 2.0. We are called to enter into a new life, meaning dead people can do nothing for themselves. Consider yourself a weekend at Bernie's. Not the hilarity part of it, but you're not alive. Okay, you're not alive. If you give up your life, you'll find is his life. If you give up yours, you'll find his life. Not your old one, you'll find his life. He will live his life through the body that you have now. It is a full surrender. People say, well, how do you make that transition? Because that's a spirit thing, and you die in spirit, but yeah, I'm still alive. That doesn't make sense. The bridge doesn't. Confusing if you look at it from a man's perspective. Okay, it's very confusing if you live your life from man's perspective. Because for a man, everything has to be tangible, everything has to be explainable in binary format. Which is why he says the wisdom of man is beneath his. But they still mention that kind of stuff when it comes to persevering in a race. I don't know how he made it. Or you hear about people in war. They have 9 gunshot wounds in them, some of them in their neck, and they'll still be able to get up and carry men to safety. And they wonder, where did they get that kind of resolve from, right? The man's pretty much dead, but he's walking and carrying other soldiers off the battlefield. How did he get that kind of power to do that? How? Unexplainable, right? They will readily accept that that's possible because they tangibly can see it. Meanwhile, you'll show them somebody who has been addicted to drugs, been a prostitute, been abused, find God and turn everything off that dealt with their sin. And the next time you see them, they're like a brand new person. And when they tell you, I found God, you find that hard to believe. The soldier walking with gunshot wounds in his neck. Not impossible to believe that he could muster that strength because he had determination. But if a person finds God and God cleans them up, that's impossible. You're going to fall back again. You've heard people say, "Oh, that's temporary. It's not real. It won't last." This is why you cannot listen to man and follow God at the same time. It won't work. It won't work. I'm telling you now, it won't work. It will not happen. I've heard so many miraculous stories of people who have been, how they were saved. And you wouldn't ever think that that person was who they said they were. And they probably wouldn't believe that's who they were because of who they are now. And they will willingly tell you, but it's not me. I'm not me. I'm not me because that person is dead. That's why they're no longer the person you don't recognize. The person you're looking at right now, I'm telling you now, I could show you a picture of what I looked like before, and you would not recognize it. And it's not even, and I'm not talking about looks. I'm not the same person. I can show you now and I can show you then, and you can see the death in my face. You could see death in my face. Understand me, people. A dead man, when you are willingly following God, will do nothing of his own accord because he is not in charge of his life. God is. And the things you're going to do and accomplish, people are going to find miraculous because you're not doing it. The people you will reach, people will think, how did you? Because you're not reaching them. God is. So if you're not dead yet, give it up. You're walking around as a corpse already anyway. It's time to acknowledge it and put that corpse where it belongs. And let him, in this mortal coil, embody what he needs and do what he has to do. If you're dead, die. You're dead to yourself, your life to Christ. And again, if none of this makes sense, I keep telling you, talk to the author. It doesn't matter how you talk to him. I'm telling you now, it doesn't matter how you talk to him. You scream out to him in anger, or you come to him sad. He wants you to come talk to him. If you're pissed off at God right now, talk to him and tell him you're pissed off at him. If you're brokenhearted, reach out to him and tell him. If you're confused, reach out and tell him. He is not a soft God. He is not a wuss God. He is not the kind of God that can't handle your mess. He already knows you're in the mess. He's looking at you right now thinking, this bro ain't coming to talk to me. This girl ain't coming to talk to me about nothing. And I'm right here. I know they don't like me. I know they don't believe me. I know they don't. I know all this, but they refuse to come and tell me. God ain't so weak that he can't handle your anger. Your anger is known to him. In fact, he probably knows more about your anger than you know about your anger. Not probably. He does know more about your anger than you do. He knows the root of your anger. I've often told people about this movie, and I will never not love this scene. And it's not necessarily a Christian scene, nor is it a supposedly godly scene. But it is a very correct scene when it comes to who mankind thinks God is. Want to find that that scene. I'm not going to play it, but there is a scene where, in a movie called The Gray, where Liam Neeson is running from wolves. I want to make sure I find it. I have to find it now. All right, here we go. So there's a scene where he is sitting on the ground after watching one of his people, partners, and friends die. They've been running from wolves the whole show, and he's on the banks of a rocky river bed in the dead of winter in the Antarctic. Just cold, wet. 7 of his friends are dead now. The whole movie, he's been contemplating suicide because of his wife dying of cancer, and he put himself in this position over in an oil field out there, guarding the field against rogue wolves, and he's a sniper, and every night he fights the urge to commit suicide, and he's running through now in this scene, and he's out of gas. He's just let go of one of his friend's hand in the water, and he's on the banks, laid up against a log, and he's soaking wet and cold. And this is what he looks like, staring up at God. Okay? The movie's called The Gray. A very hard watch, but it's worth it for this scene, and this scene only. Really. Now, remember I told you what he was like the whole movie. It comes down to this scene. This is not the last scene, but it's the second to last scene of the movie. He's at the end of his rope. He's lived his whole life for himself and people, not for God. And he finally he's at the end of it all. The ropes, everything. And he says, I'm calling on you. Answer me. Give me a sign. Tell me what's going on. And he cusses at God. Now, he gives God approximately 10 seconds to respond. 10 seconds. He lived his whole life, 50 plus years, doing what he wanted. He got to the end of his rope, screamed at God, cussed him out, and gave him 10 seconds to respond. And when God didn't respond, he says, that's fine, I'll do it myself. A lot of us will get to that point and we will not give God any room to get in. But you know what we'll say to ourselves? I asked him and he didn't answer. We kind of take weight loss like that too, huh? You spend your whole life eating unhealthy and then you expect to lose weight in a week. A lot of us will cry out to God in a moment of desperation, but it's not meaningful. A true plight to God, a true plight, will happen over and over until you get an answer. That's the difference. That's the difference. A true cry for God to show up will continue until he shows up. That's when you know you're broken. That's when you know your plight is real. You don't stop going until you get. Remember that judge and the ladies that had the baby. No, not the baby, but he said the lady that had I needed some justice against my adversary, and she kept going and going and going and going and going. He said, because you've been coming so often, I'll do what you told me. Okay, fine, whatever. Just stop. I hear you. If you don't keep approaching the throne, it's a sure sign that you're not really wanting to get the answer. My kid may want something from the kitchen, and he's 7. It's the reason why he gave us children, man. Um, when that brother wants something bad enough and really wants it, he will come to me every 10 seconds to ask me, what about, and remember I asked for, until he gets an answer. But he wants it. He doesn't go to bed without being prayed for, okay? So if we're in the middle of doing something else and it's bedtime and someone hasn't come in his room yet to pray, he'll get up and say, who's going to come pray for me? Who's coming to pray for me? And we'll say, okay, we'll be right there. And a couple of minutes will pass by. He says, who's coming to pray for me? Who's coming to? He will not stop until that is done. But he also knows that we will do it because we have, which is why he can feel persistent enough to keep coming. If he did that once and nobody showed up, twice and nobody, he'll stop doing? Stop coming. But I know my God. He will answer. You just haven't been persistent enough in what you want from him, which is you to die. Or maybe your wanting of what you want is not what he wants. You're dead. You are dead. He is life. And the life that he offers, he has to live it, not you. The life that he is asking you to allow him to live is not up to you how it operates. So when he expels something from your life, do not fight it, because you're dead. For those of you on Facebook that haven't gone to subscribe yet to the Straight Talk YouTube page, there's the link for you. Please feel free to go over and sign up there. We have a rough time ahead of us in this world. And the only way we can survive is by having the one person who can handle all of it doing the life for us. Otherwise, we're hosed. We're hosed. Life is worth having. You'll be amazed how much easier, and I really mean that word, easier life is with him running it. Because he's quite capable of doing it. We'll be back on tonight on Too Strong. For those of you who have not subbed yet to Too Strong, please go and do so. We cover a lot of stuff that have a bearing in the spiritual world, but most people may not see the link. So feel free to go over there and sub to that if you haven't. My only challenge to you today is to really evaluate things. Evaluate it. Because he does want you to understand something, that true surrender means all of it. not some, not partial, not piece, not, and leaving a little bit over for you. It's all. It's all. A dead man, you can't. Everybody keeps saying you can't take nothing to the grave with you. You can't. You can't take nothing to the grave with you. Once you're dead, that's it. Possessions are gone. Desires are gone. All of it gone. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if I'll be having a live tomorrow morning. I might drop a couple of shows because I still have to go through all of the Journey series and cut them up too. I got my work cut out for me tomorrow, if nothing else. But these 3 things that I did this week were the biggest ones on my heart, and I wanted to get them out. And you'll know in advance what's coming next week, so don't worry about that. Just make sure you stay tuned to the channel, look out for things, and put that notification bell on. Thank you guys for listening. We're in dire times, and we need to start fighting like we're in dire times. Okay? And that means fighting for the salvation of your soul, too. Or even die. I guess. Love you guys. And as usual, I always say, wisdom calls you from the street. Please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.